Welcome back to the show that unpacks the issues shaping our world and the stories defining our future. This is Timeline, and we are officially back for an all-new season. Now, for 2 seasons, this show navigated the complex landscapes of youth employment, digital literacy, and public health, and of course, a host of others. And we've challenged the status quo and amplified the voices of those working to build a better Africa. But as we begin this new chapter, we are not just looking at the problems, we are seeking out solutions. And now in this first episode of season 3, we're diving into an important topic. But before we go into it, I am your host, Sharon Ajay, and of course with me is my co-host.
Hello, I am Hannah Mokafe Dennis, and of course, I'm excited to be on the third season of Timeline, and we have a veterinary doctor right here with us. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, we have our guest who is a veterinary doctor, Dr. Zachariya. Esther.
Yes, that's correct.
You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so
Esther.
much. Thank
Welcome.
you so much.
Well, before we dive right into the topic fully, the topic we'll be looking at today is wildlife conservation. Such an interesting topic. Well, we'll dive fully into it after we come back from this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is the first episode of Timeline Season 3. And we're looking into the topic wildlife conservation. Now, wildlife conservation is the practice of protecting plant and animal species and their habitats. Wildlife is integral to the world's ecosystems, providing balance and stability to nations' processes. The goal of wildlife conservation is to ensure the survival of these species and to, of course, educate people on living sustainably with other species. And now this is such an interesting topic, I would say, in as much as it's not a topic that gets to be talked about. It doesn't get much attention the way human issues would get a lot of attention. And I believe that stems off from the fact that it's animal related and all of that. And of course, in as much as we know that kind of intertwined with the, existence of human beings, because of course we're going to dive into the conversation and people will get to understand how important it is for wildlife conservation. And I hope with that knowledge, people would definitely give more interest in wildlife conservation. We see organizations like the World Wildlife Fund, and they've been trying their best to, fund the wildlife conservation and the need for awareness, and of course the need to protect the species that are going extinct and all of that. And it's such an interesting topic, and I'm excited to dive right into it because of the level of knowledge that we're bringing into this conversation, right?
Yeah, of course. Before we even go further, let's define what exactly conservation means. Conservation simply means the process of preserving, of restoring, of protecting the natural habitats and also the ecosystems. And when it comes to wildlife, that's exactly what is to be done. And like you rightly mentioned, it involves partnership of every single person that is on Earth, and maybe even outside of the Earth, to be able to ensure that we ourselves do not go extinct, that the wildlife itself do not go extinct, even if our food also do not go extinct. Right. And this is why we have organizations like the UNEP, that is the United Nations Environmental Programme, always in collaboration with other organizations that have the same mindset with them and also the same goals, like the Wildlife Fund that you mentioned, also Conservation International, also FOA, that is Food and Agricultural Organizations. All of them always come together, like the SDG 17, partnership and collaboration to ensure that all of these things happen in a goodwill. That is, we have our bears still in, when we give birth to our children, you will still know that bears exist, and it's not just, something that we imagine, but they can see it. They can see lions, both females, both males, and every other animal that exists on Earth.
Rightly said. Dr. Esther, I would like you to share with us, what are some human activities that put, wildlife at risk in our world today?
All right. So, if I would just pick up from what both of you said, there is a One Health concept now, right? So it is not only human medics or animal doctors, basically. So it's everyone, environmental scientists, pharmacists. We all have to come together to ensure that the ecosystem is preserved. There are a lot of human activities that put wildlife at risk. Deforestation is one of them, right? The use of harmful chemicals. We have human activities that encroach into this animal habitat. We also have the illegal trafficking of hide and skin, of thugs, of elephants. We have bushmeats that are being hunters are hunting bushmeats that are not even supposed to be eaten. So you now get to hunt these animals and then they go in extinct. While you sent this topic to me, I tried to also do a little bit of a research. So the gorillas in Cross River are very rare.
Okay.
They're like, you only find them in two places, Cross River and Gabon, two places only in the world. So imagine if we don't preserve that, we don't have anything to show our future generation. We do not have anything to show that, okay, we had this, to preserve a heritage of some sort, right? If we say Nigeria has that and it's in Cross River, we can now pride in knowing that that is our culture and our heritage. If we don't preserve that, it's going to actually not speak well for, generations to come, because what do we see? What are we leaving behind for them? So yes, these are the ways that, we encroach in the ecosystem and for the wildlife and cause so many problems for these animals.
Yeah, quite interesting. You made mention of ecosystem.
Yeah.
And now I would like to throw another question to you. How does the extent of a particular species affect the ecosystem and the human life in a whole?
Okay, so while we were in secondary school or growing, this pyramid thing they teach us, where there is, an ant and, a lizard eats the ant and, another higher animal eats the lizard and eats an animal.
Like a circle.
I would always say there is no balance. There is no vacuum in the world, right? There's always balance. So if, for instance, we take away, again, those things that don't even, as little as maybe cockroaches, as little as the insects we see, it would disrupt the ecosystem. So yes, that is what it does. It disrupts the ecosystem. One of the animals don't have what to feed on, right? At the end, it turns that those animals become extinct. And like you said, right, it's not just these animals, it's also us in particular. We feed on this livestock. If livestock has nothing to feed on, it turns back to us at the end of the day. So, and like almost said, those that are not even on Earth, again, if we're not here, those ones that are not on Earth will be the ones affected tomorrow.
I particularly like your answer, because this leads to our next question when it comes to public awareness. There are lots of people who do not know that. So they just believe that God has created every single thing for us on earth to come and eat. And when they are eating, they are not planting, they are not giving back, or they are not trying to find a way to conserve it or to make other people come and also enjoy from that. So when and how do you think it is very necessary to create public awareness regarding wildlife as a whole?
This is why I appreciate what you're doing here, what you guys are doing here. It's amazing.
Much.
Now, one of the ways for you to conserve wildlife is through public awareness and education. Yeah. And this is what we're doing right now. Yeah. The moment people know so much, they will do more.
Definitely.
Somebody was speaking with me the other day and they were saying, how do you do with veterinary medicine in Nigeria? A lot of Nigerians don't. And I'm like, we're getting there, right? It's a developing country. So the moment you know the importance of something, you want to do more, to foster that. So yes, it's important to want to give back, right? And what I mean by giving back is ensuring you do not hunt animals that are in extent, right? Animals that are in conservation areas, basically Yankari Game Reserve, Obudu Cattle Ranch, and all of those, right? You do not try to want to see, how does this animal taste? And we're Africans, we want to explore a lot of things, even down to plants, right? Down to trees. Like you told me, I said planting trees is one of the ways, right? So the moment we plant, we're giving back to what has fed us, right? Again, we understand that we breathe out carbon dioxide and then these trees give us oxygen. So if we don't have that, in a way, we're also at a very high risk. This statement where people say you should have started yesterday. That is it on public awareness for wildlife conservation and preservation.
But then, how do you even? Nigeria is a typical African society.
Yeah.
Our forefathers grew up hunting, and for some of them who are probably kings or warriors, hunting animals like elephants, like gorillas, those huge animals like lions, is sort of like a way to show their power. You go to some villages or to some palaces, and then you get to see there's
Yes.
of an
exactly.
elephant. In short, whoever gets it, just they like give you this
yes,
ranking. Oh, you
yes.
can actually
You can
do
do
that.
that. Exactly. Now that's the point I was trying to make. And even there was this movie, I don't know if you watch, I've forgotten the name of the movie.
Okay.
But then the prince or whoever is about to become a king, going to America too. Yes. Exactly, you remember.
Kill the lion.
Not kill, removing the
lion,
wicks of the lion.
Yeah.
And that in a way means that you always have to, gather the lions, or probably you have to have it in your habitat. And I remember in the African SDG film recently happened, and somebody right there did a documentary on lions, saying that there was just one male lion that was, remaining in a South African zoo, and a lot of people gathered around that place. Exactly. I'm trying to go somewhere with my question.
Yeah.
Now, what does it mean to, bring in culture and trying to teach people how to preserve all of these animals while in the same way still not encroaching into their own cultural practices?
Okay, so for some of them, that's their livelihood, right?
Exactly.
We will not take away the fact that it's their livelihood. Now, what these foundations do, right? Like the World Wildlife Fund, right? What it does is like a compensation, right? So if we take away the fact that you shouldn't hunt this animal, we should be able to provide you some other source of livelihood, right? That is the way it gets a balance of some sort, right? For cultures and traditions that we have as Africans, that is why we're doing a public awareness and a public education thing. The more people know, right? Like you rightly said, one lion in a whole zoo in a country. That means if anything happens to that lion, we wouldn't have it anymore. It's gone, right? And we want to be able to conserve that. So you see a lot of funds go into trying to preserve the animal's DNA, all of those things. So again, like I said, we have to find a way to educate people as much as possible. Then for these ones that it's their livelihood, what we should do is find a way of compensating, find a way of saying, okay, I'm taking away this one thing from you. I'm giving you teaching. Go and tell people, okay, this is what I've done with this. It's not right. So I don't want you to do the same. Give them money. At the end of the day, everyone is trying to get a livelihood. So compensate them for taking away that, because again, it's their source of livelihood. And then for the cultures and traditions, we have to do a lot more awareness, a lot more community engagements, speak to more people, speak to these traditional rulers. Let's find a way of, giving, dignity or title to people in a different way than, encroaching into our wildlife.
Yeah, you talked about giving them money and all of that, but I feel that when it comes to wildlife, it's meant to be like a collaboration work, because just like you said, the species of gorilla found in Cross River is peculiar to Cross River State.
Yes.
So I believe that animal is owned by the state and by, of course, Nigeria and that state. Now, in a situation where they don't even understand the peculiarity that surrounds the need for conservating that kind of species, how do we go about it? Because it belongs to you. It's not as if the animal is owned by, let's say, the UN. Now, just for an instance, just the UN, owned by the UN, and UN will come and say, okay, because it's owned by us, don't do this, whatsoever will make you do this, take funds instead. So it's something that is, like I stated, is a collaboration work. You need to understand the need to preserve them. It's peculiar to your own land. It's peculiar to your own country. It's more like, let me use a Gen Z word. It's more like a vibe.
Yeah, you
to have that kind of animal. When you made mention of it, I was like, wow, really? It's peculiar to that.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful to know. So just like you said, and Omokafe has also said, awareness, it's so important. And not just awareness, the need to also conserve this species. There is a need for it.
Yeah.
To know that if I'm looking for any kind of species of animal in the world, I can find it here. And I'm not finding it here because it's just there. I'm finding it here because you've put in effort to preserve that animal. Now, before I go into another question, we'll be going on a short break. And of course, when we return, Omo Cafe will take us through the social commentary. Stay with us. Welcome back to Timeline. We're discussing on the topic wildlife conservation. And of course, we have a guest with us in the house, Esther, Dr. Esther.
Thank you so much.
Omo Cafe, please take us through the social commentary.
Okay, well, there's a whole lot of things that are happening online. Of course, people are talking, not just people, but also the organizations who have taken it upon themselves to be responsible for preserving wildlife in our earth, so that at least our children can see gorillas in Cross River and, of course, Gabon. And this one is from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and they said, illegal wildlife trafficking is one of the world's biggest organized crimes. In Cameroon, we support training for rangers and crime scene management to help gather evidence and bring traffickers to justice. Now, this is actually one of the solutions that would go further. Of course, we have to hear from Dr. Esther right here. About exactly what it is. And no one says wildlife animals carry diseases that can spread to humans when habitat loss or trafficking brings them closer to urban areas. And this right here is actually one of the problems or the primary causes of wildlife, what's the word right now? Of wildlife degradation, or say, because habitat loss and degradation, imagine a fish who is used to being in a river in Abuja, and then all of a sudden there's so much death dump in that river, flooding and all of these things comes. Now that fish has to leave its habitat and move to another one, and that fish might probably not be able to survive in that particular water. And what happens? It dies. And this is the case. Now, these people said that the SAFE project works to prevent the risks of future pandemics by strengthening regulations and law enforcement. So it means that for the case study that I gave now, it means that people will be stopped from going to throw death into those rivers that they know that life lives in. That is Life on Land, SG 15. This one says from UN Environment Program, which I had mentioned earlier, says elephants are intelligent, emotional creatures that play a crucial role in their ecosystems by germinating plants and more. Unfortunately, they are threatened by poaching and affected by habitat loss along with human-wildlife conflict. Now, this leads me to a question. What's your favorite animal?
No, I can't do that. I'll be put on it.
Oh my goodness. So is this really true that elephants are intelligent
Yes,
and
elephants
emotional
are one
creatures?
of the very intelligent animals. So if you do top 50 or top 10, elephants are in
I
that
heard that
number.
if you hurt an elephant, even in 50 years to come, it will remember your face.
Yes, they're very
imagine.
intelligent, yes.
But
They
right
have very
here
good
now,
memory.
unfortunately, these very intelligent and emotional animals are threatened by poaching and affected by habitat loss along with human-wildlife conflict. So humans are doing a lot when it comes to chasing these highly intelligent animals away from their habitat. And this one says, on World Ranger Day 2025, Global Wildlife Program recognizes the role rangers play in driving wildlife conservation in protected areas and ecological corridors around the world. Their work safeguards biodiversity, supports human-wildlife coexistence, and sustains nature-based jobs. Now, this, I think, for people who attended the African Nursery Films, if you don't attend to, I don't know, because I gained a lot when it comes to preserving society in several ways. And there was a particular movie, I think the particular one that talked about one male lion in the South African zoo. It looked at what the rangers get to do, how they protect themselves, but not just protecting themselves, but passing those knowledge to, so also people who come to visit. So you are coming to visit.
So they can exist.
Yes, they can exist well. And this is what, now if we're able to train them in very positive ways or in sustainable ways, they're able to know for themselves how to protect these animals in their care, and also the people who come to visit them. Of course. Now, this one says last week, the UN General Assembly, UNGA, adopted a new resolution on tackling illicit trafficking in wildlife. So trafficking is not just a human problem or drug problem.
I even think wildlife trafficking is way worse.
Wow.
Yes, it's way worse because it goes unnoticed, really. And then because they are not there are laws, but the laws are not enforced strictly. So it can just go under the radar unnoticed. And then you wake up in 20 years and 15 years and we don't have a particular animal in Nigeria anymore. So it's...
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Now let's continue. It says it specifically acknowledged the important role of ICCWC in supporting member states with technical assistance. And I think, just like you mentioned, it's a very big problem in Nigeria. In fact, the UN in 2019 had reported that over 1 million species will go in extinct because of this illegal trafficking. So you can just imagine. Well, I think that's all we have for today as regards social commentaries and what's happening on social media space. We'd like to at least hear you talk about solutions and of course the timeline and where we are in as regards wildlife preservations.
Well, before you even go into your solutions, I have a question for you. Okay. Now, do you think the interest of protecting wildlife, when it comes to, of course, we humans, the interest of we wanting to protect wildlife is based off on the benefit we can get from them, like the ecotourism, or it should rather be based on moral grounds? Now, I'm going to tell you something. I can't state the date, but a while ago in Ondo State, the resident caught a gorilla.
My goodness.
And they killed it. They roasted it. I don't even know if they've ever eaten that animal before, but I guess you just wanted to try it out. And then they roasted it and put it on, then they posted it online. That same region killed an elephant that was not even trying to harm them or whatsoever. They killed an elephant. The hunter that killed the elephant stood on the elephant and then took a picture, more like bragging that he killed them. Yeah. And I remember growing up, my mom would say, whatsoever you would not want to eat, do not kill it. I know there was a time I took stone, I threw at a bed next, and the nest fell on the floor. Then I picked the chicks and I was feeding them warm and ant. And my mom was so mad and said, you don't get to kill animals you don't eat. It is totally wrong. And that's why that's what brought me to that question I'm throwing to you. Should it be based on morality? I know I might not be able to benefit from seeing the species of animal. I don't get to call people to, come, there's the tourist site, come and see this animal, blah, 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 and all of that. But I should be able to protect the animal based on morality, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I think it's a two-way thing, right? So for those it will benefit, they will want to do more, right? And for those on the moral side, they will also want to do more on the fact of their morality. So it's a two-way coin, right? Most importantly, we should ensure that everyone is aware, right? You then choose which it is for you. So if for you it is a moral obligation not to do this, then you pick a side of, it being moral. But if it's a side of being beneficial for you, then you pick a side of being beneficial. At the end of the day, either beneficial or morally or preserving this wildlife. At the end of the day, the end result we want is achieved.
Yeah,
right. So
definitely. And Omokafi just threw a question at you before I choose this.
Yes,
said you should prefer solution.
Training this rangers, wildlife park rangers, first and foremost, right, or training personnel on how to ensure that these parks are being properly protected. Right, that's one. Secondly, planting trees. I earlier said planting trees, right? Reforestation is a way for you to actually give back the habitat of these animals, right? Who has heard of that? The snake. I don't want to call it a theory, but you know how you put a snake in a glass and it grows just to the size of that glass. Wow. If you leave it in a bigger space, it grows as big as that space.
That's a very good knowledge.
Yes, it grows as big as that space. There's a snake that does that. So just imagine that, you don't give that snake the big space or the habitat it needs for it to reach its full potential. It doesn't get to reach its full potential. And then once we're showing our children, we're showing future generations, they will be seeing something small, but that is not the full potential of that animal. So yes, reforestation, giving them back their habitat, right? Reducing human activities on land, really. The use of harsh chemicals. Again, like you said, wildlife conservation is not just the animals, it's also the plants, it's also the environment as it is, right? So you want to ensure that you don't use harsh chemicals, right? You do not encroach into their space. There's also the public awareness and public education that you guys are really doing so well with. That is also going to help. That is another way of ensuring that we give solutions to this. Another thing is to monitor and do more researches, right? For the lion that is just the one single male lion remaining, right? Researches are done, we can preserve the DNA of that, and ensure that we take sperm cells from that male animal and preserve. We can now find a way to fertilize many more female lions and then have that particular male back into existence, basically, right? So there's also research, there's monitoring, let's look at it, how is it going? Then creating more parks. In Nigeria, how many parks do we have, basically? Animals reservation.
You guys know
Yankari Game Reserve, there's Obudu Cattle Ranch.
There's one used to be
there's
in
one in
Kaduna.
Taraba,
Okay.
right? So if we can have more, again, like you said, collaboration is really important.
Yeah.
We have a wildlife conservation organization in Nigeria, right? And then there is the UN, there is the WWF, once we come in hand and we collaborate, we'll be able to, reduce the poaching, reduce illegal animal trafficking, right? Also, again, like I said, and I know it seems like it's something that is out of the books, but ensuring that for these hunters, you educate them on this and then give them something else. It will make no sense that you take away their source of livelihood and then don't replace it with something. This is what causes them to do all of these illegal things. Yes, you will not be able to. But the moment you can take it and then give them something else, I think we'll be able to preserve wildlife for our future generations, and they would see what we've seen. They'll see what we did not even see. I mean, if we do better, we can have, as much as possible.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Dr.
you
Esther. We
so
just hope in
much.
20 years to come, we'll not just be talking much about wildlife conservation, because by this time, lots of persons will be aware of, the need to conserve
I'll see more
wildlife.
lions in that South African.
Hopefully.
Of course, you
Yeah, thank you once again.
Thank you so
Well, that's
much.
where we draw the line on Timeline. I hope you've been inspired, and I hope we've been able to give you the awareness you need on the need to conserve wildlife, and of course, some solutions preferred. Well, until next time, I am your host, Sharon Ajay, and
I'm Hannah Amoka Fadenis, of course, and this is Dr.
Zachariya Esther. Thank you so much.